Hi, everyone. This is Teresa Aker from Success Diaries with Teresa Aker. I'm thrilled today to bring you Jerald Winston. He's a cameraman. He's going to talk to us about everything today. Welcome, Jerald.
Hey, Teresa, thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm excited to talk to you today. So I'm just going to pull up a little bit of your bio here, Jerald. So just bear with me here. So Jerald is a camera operator who is the sole proprietor of Pangea AV, doing great production work for corporate events, sports, broadcasting, concerts, and film production for over 20 years. So well done, Jerald. Let's start there. How did you get into being a cameraman?
I guess it's kind of weird. I guess, it all comes back to our childhood. My best friend growing up, he played basketball. He was self-aware of how he would appear in pictures. He's not like the go get a class photo kind of guy. That was like a dreading day for him, where the rest of us got all fancied up and we looked forward to it. And his mom went and bought this giant bazooka looking video camera. I remember him back in the day. I know kids might be watching this being like, I don't understand. Cameras are like this small. It looks like a
Yeah,
dog. No, they used to be
exactly.
the size of a small
Yeah.
Honda.
Yeah.
And then they expect you to put that on your shoulder, and which is, I guess, what we still do today. We just have 4K instead of what was like 380 or whatever. And I told Roger, I was like, hey, I know you're insecure, but let me have fun with it. Like by the time I'm done with this, no one's going to even be paying attention to how you play basketball or how you look or any of those little things you're worried about. And so I did. I got fun with it, went Dutch and did all these crazy angles and did some crazy commentary, made it fun, almost like a Mystery Theater 3000 kind of vibe. And it made the whole family crack up. We watched it like several times after. And I remember the power of that. I remember that, oh, the camera operator is more, or can be, more than just a controller.
Okay.
He can be someone that puts a little bit of their art into whatever the collaboration is, whether it's just filming your brother play basketball or if you're actually trying to like send a brand's message with a company. And mostly what I do, it took me a long time because mostly what I do is I pretty much operate long lens cameras. So if you go to a sports game, if you go to a concert or a conference and it's those really giant cameras with the huge, like it looks like some type of space gun that should be mounted on the side of a ship, really. That's what I typically use. And so that's a very niche department in cinematography,
Oh, okay.
um, or mass communication, depending on how you want to divide me or label me. And the power of that seems pretty limiting until you start to really open the creative box. And so that's just something I love. And I can go down a 3 hour talk about creativity and composition and how it is you have control over the power of your message. But I guess in short, that was the spark that fueled the fire. And I cultivated that fire for a long time. When I first got in production, I was a stagehand and a typical tech and a floor tech and an in-house AV guy and all those typical steps you would do to work your way up. I think a lot of people who are where I am, they went to college and they just stepped right into it. So they don't really know how all the other pieces connect. They pretty
Okay.
much just do their one thing in a little silo. And there's some power to that. It allowed them to very specialize in certain elements. Um, but I think there's also a power to knowing how the community fits together, especially now that I'm in my kind of later stages of my career where I am looking more to give back and I am looking more about how the community fits and how everything reinforces each other. Because I'm a big fan of having all my interests reinforced. I know some people like to play here, work there, and I like everything to connect. I like my art to serve my business to serve my art, and I don't feel that one exists without the other. The right hand can't go do something and be like, oh, it's just me, and not attached to the left. They are symbiotic, and that's the only way to be sustainable, I believe, is to really have everything self-reinforced. And I think that's important going forward when looking at communities, because now I'm at that like mentor phase where I want to give back. So I start with that question, what are the things I wish I knew? I'm sure you in the doing podcasts and interviewing people, I bet there's things like, oh, well, I was today years old when I learned this. That would have been great to know
That
10,
would have been
15 years
handy.
ago.
But we all have to start somewhere, right?
That's right. That's right. And when we were coming up, we were kind of trapped by proximity. You had to know someone to be a mentor or know someone who could connect you to that mentor, or you had to buy a book. You couldn't just like Google someone, send a connect on LinkedIn and be like, hey, do you mind answering a couple of questions and get a response back where that guy's like, oh, I don't mind that at all.
Yeah.
Because people are very collaborative. They do kind of get the social power of when we all come together and we all try to achieve a goal, whether it's using redundant systems to reinforce, like, hey, go do this on your own. And if you fail, come back. Or if it's everyone all at once. I don't think it really matters which way you go as long as it's working for you. Um,
Right.
and I really like that kind of stuff. I was always really enamored by the pack of the unit, by the power of the whole tribe, of everyone being able to kind of really compound their impact. Like, yeah, you can do a lot as a person, but you can do so much more together.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what kind of productions have you done? Tell us.
Oh, that's yeah, a lot. So I'll start with like
Yeah, but
the
we want to
crowd
know. We want
pleasers.
to know
Yeah.
who you've met, what you've done. Jerald, you're kind of a celebrity here.
No, I tell people I'm celebrity adjacent.
Yeah, right.
That I am some it is like a privileged position, and I'm grateful for that because I am oftentimes in the room with people that you would only see on the small screen in your hand or on your TV in your living room.
Well, sure,
So
and they're
also,
counting on you doing a good job because they're out there, they're right in front of the camera. They're counting on you doing a very good job to make it all come off so that the show is great, the movie, television, whatever you're doing,
yeah,
they're relying on you, aren't they?
they are, and it's a team. So I'm usually not the only camera operator. So hopefully the whole show's not on me. But nowadays, I guess it's not true. Now that I'm older, there are a lot of times it is just me. As now that I've for the last like 8 or 9 years been like camera one more often than not. But I'll quote Dan Aykroyd. I did a show for him, and he came out, and his whole speech, it was really kind of one of those "this is where I'm supposed to be" moments, because a lot of the content I do sometimes is just very data driven and very deep. Not a lot of it. Some of it's fluff and Brene Brown telling a great story or whatever, but a lot of times it's a lot of like data analytics and someone
Sure.
explaining that data to a larger group, so it makes sense and it's relevant to them and their company. But Dan Aykroyd, even though he's hired by some trucking company to come out and talk, but he made it all about collaboration, and he did so by talking about how important camera operators were.
Oh, is
It was
that right?
really
Isn't
cool
that
because the
nice of
whole
him?
talk. Oh, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, no, you didn't. I just said that's very nice of him.
And it was like the whole talk was just him talk. He told a story, and he didn't name the actor. But he was like, I was on set, and we had this actor, and he just kept berating the camera people. He didn't like the product they were getting, even though he wasn't really able like to really see it. It wasn't like he was watching the dailies and then coming back the next day with notes. He's doing this like off the cuff by watching that little preview monitor on the side, which isn't that's not an accurate way to analyze whatever they just created. Just right off. You're not using a good ruler, as Dan would say. And so he went on to say how that guy pretty much just he kept looking worse and worse. And the more he treated the camera people worse, it was very like correlative. Like I can't
Oh,
say one caused
really?
the other, but it was definitely like he was not looking better when he yelled at these people. And
See?
Dan was like, you have to inspire. And sometimes that's an energy transfer. You are right. This person did maybe do something wrong. Or even if you are right, let's assume this actor was right. You still don't, it's not in your best interest to destroy the energy to achieve what you think is perfection. You need to achieve perfection while maintaining the energy, because it doesn't matter if you think they can do technically something right. If they're feeling like crap, chances are it's going to self-sabotage, or something within them is going to stop this from being replicatable or being able for them to repeat that. And
And
I thought
isn't
that
it
was,
that way with everything, Gerald? I mean, how we treat
yeah,
people is what we're going to get back to us.
I
And that
really
was
believe that.
absolutely, and that was very pointed of him. So that's very good. And it's nice that he recognizes that.
Oh, he was fantastic.
I'm
Now, a lot of
sure.
times when I work for celebrities, I don't really get to meet them. Usually they're like 50 yards away and I get like a nod. Or because usually it's like they want to know where they look. So they're talking to the director, like, where am I looking? They're going to point. And so they see me and they're like, hey, you know. But it is really cool to be able to be, I call it the accidental PhD. I'm a college dropout. Went to Austin P, which was a great school, and it carried me, I think, to where I needed to be. Um, but it's one of those things that I'm constantly in the room with, whether it's the CEO of Oracle, whether it's Brene Brown doing emotional intelligence, or whether it's Dan Aykroyd conveniently teaching me about my own job when I thought he was coming in to talk about trucking. You pick up on all this stuff. And because I'm not just seeing the content one time, like typically the audience shows, they see it for an hour, maybe to 3 hours, and they leave. I saw it all through rehearsals. I saw all the prep. And so I get it a little bit more repetitively than I think other people do. So at this point, I've picked up all these different things that pretty much kind of illuminate my worldview in a very unique way, I feel. Because I think he was exactly right. I think that energy transfer isn't worth sacrificing in order to get some technical detail right. And
Absolutely.
I think it's also one of the keys to sustainability. Now, people can be too happy to where they become lazy, and then what's the point? But I think you'll find that most people are in phases. And so when you meet a person, they're kind of like in a lazy phase. That's not going to last forever. So just take the burden you're trying to put on them, or you're trying to delegate to them, and put that somewhere else. And then you'll see that that will give them time to rest, because it's more like when you're coaching football and that person's just tired, and they might be tired for plays that you weren't running, because people have all their lives they're doing that isn't just the game you're playing, or the company you're running, or the goal you're trying to achieve. And I think oftentimes big corporations are very guilty of unsustainable acts, even people like Elon Musk and Tesla, because they're robbing from the familial system, i.e., a father and mother coming home to raise children, or whatever the paradigm is, two fathers, two mothers, whatever, coming home to raise children. They're robbing from that because that takes a lot of time. To raise a family takes a lot of time, and your family is your retirement plan. If you don't have children, you have to have a ton more money in order not to be like, homeless in a gutter, unfortunately, because of the medical issues and how easy it is to slip and fall, become unable to do a lot of type of jobs.
Right.
So once that income stops coming and you're only on Social Security, chances are that probably won't be enough for you to retire. And that's where typically you would move in with your kids and stop paying rent or mortgages or whatever, and you sell your house, and that money becomes your whatever, combined then with your Social Security and whatever investments you've made. Because I know everyone likes to think that at 20 we all started investing and we'll be fine in retirement. But honestly, most people don't start till they're 40,
That's
unless they have
correct.
generational assistance. Because then sometimes parents are pretty good about starting kids. But I say all that to say that they're robbing from the familial system. They're taking that time and what little resources children require, especially when the employee is typically in their power band, that we'll say 25 or 30 to 40 or 45, 50, where people are their highest earning and they're really pumping a lot of money into the reserves. It's not when they're 20 and they're just spending it on Yoo-hoo and whistle pops or whatever kids do these days. So I don't think that's sustainable. When big companies like Tesla do that and they really say, oh, people should be sleeping on mats in the assembly line floor, he's robbing from families to do that. He's stealing time. And I don't think he wants to recognize that. So that's why I really applaud companies like Google, who in their past CEO, or this current CEO, made a big, big deal about making sure their systems are sustainable in their analysis. And Google's the king of data. I know
Right.
Elon thinks to think he is, but Google's the king. And in their analysis, they realized that if you start to rob one too much, it's like trying to grow crops without any water. These systems are reliant on each other. People with bad families do bad work. And there's very few exceptions. There's some Wolf of Wall Streets, some guy in his fifth, divorce, and he's made $8 billion and it doesn't matter. But typically they don't raise great familial systems, which then it destroys what they were really trying to do anyway. When that employee has a dream plan and they're trying to think about, I'm going to trade this time for these resources, and I'm going to take these resources over here and achieve this goal. Like most of us, like, I'm going to do this to get rich. When I'm rich, I'm going to do this to be a good person, or to create my reputation, or to create my legacy, or however that works. But however, when they sacrifice too much time, if they don't have it divided, if they don't have some of their time done in their family, some of their time done here, and some of their time done in education and recreation and growth, what happens is when they get to that legacy building, their kids have already cut them off. There's no legacy to build. You have to start with strangers. And strangers aren't going to love you the way someone who had 20 years to love you could.
Well,
It's
and
very
I
hard.
think there's a lot of truth to that, because you certainly have to be there for your family, the
Mm-hmm.
person that whether your partner is working all the time, we have to make concessions for emotional
Mm-hmm.
family relationship time. We also have to take care of ourselves and have relaxation time.
Yep.
So you don't want to work, like, let's say 50 years and find out that you've got nothing left in the tank to have fun. So I think you have to plan those things. So you're
Yep.
right, you do have to look at the whole picture of things. But the responsibility is on each person to make sure that they allot that time no matter what,
Yeah.
right?
Scheduling is a constant,
Oh, it's
is a
huge.
constant struggle. And we're all fighting for time. Just like these other companies want to kind of take it from this system in order to give it to their rockets or cars or whatever they're doing. We're also trying to find time just for ourselves.
Yeah, yes.
So these right now we have the power band professionals are fighting between giving their time to their family and giving their time to their boss. And man, there's almost no time for themselves. And it's breaking them.
Now, I think things might be changing a little bit with
I think
AI.
so.
When
I
I
think so.
say that, we are getting a little more help, so that the AI, even bots, can work
Yeah.
longer than we can. And there may be coming down the road a shorter work week and a shorter time,
Yeah.
or even with the hybrid going back and forth.
Hmm.
That allows people to not have to commute all day long. You know, you get a
It
three
does.
hour commute in your day every single day for 5 days a week or more. That's a lot. So I think we do have some things coming, but yeah, we have to, I think each individual has to really recognize where is my energy being spent and
Yep.
how can I make this better for all of us combined, right?
I agree. And I think, and this is just speculation, but I think one of the possible innovations over the next decade or 2 decades, and it depends because you have all these competing leaders trying to sell what they want the future to look like. And it's all dependent on kind of what benefits them. And some people have a very good connected world look, and some people don't. Some people
Yeah,
will
yes,
drain all these other pools just to fill the one. And I
yeah.
have found that not to be sustainable unless you're planning to abandon this planet. That's where Elon Musk kind of concerns me because I feel like he will drain all of this and he will leave this behind and us to go do whatever is out there for him. So you do have to be responsible and think about those kind of things. And I feel oftentimes that in the future, I feel like Google has a very good chance with Google Gemini
Mhm.
of coming in and creating, because I spoke earlier about how Google kind of reasserted that they understand the balance to family and business is important and connected. And I think they might be willing or could be possible. I've heard whispers of this, of them, because right now you have a lot of companies that come in and implement AI and they do so to replace and remove employees. So the employees don't actually get training or chances to use this. You have employees teaching themselves, like I am doing now currently, about AI, and they're trying to build it in their own tool sets. And businesses, entrepreneurs, this is a great power. AI is really fantastic for entrepreneurs and for self-starters and for people mid-sized to large businesses. But for the employees, that are kind of used to doing that employee mindset. A lot of these companies are just opting to replace that employee and have the AI automate the task. Oh, I'm having a problem with my headset. Give me
That's okay.
just a
Take your
second.
time. Yeah. No, I know where you're going with that. I think we all have to upgrade as well. We have to sort of
Yeah.
upgrade. But you're right. It depends on the mindset of the person. And if you're looking at working to retirement,
Mm,
that's one way of looking at life. There's another way of working and having a side hustle to do better so that you can do your side hustle more. And then there's the ones that are just going to work until that, you know, they're going to sit in this chair until that last moment. So
yep.
yes, you're right, Jerald. You have to have a mind. You have to know what your mindset is, and if your goal is to have balance in your life, you have to figure out where the balance is coming from.
No, I think that's exactly true. I think Google has got a good chance to implement something I've heard whispers of, where it's going to be rather than replace a bunch of employees with AI, they're going to start really aggressively teaching all these employees how to use AI. So one employee becomes equal to 10. So as Google scales, they're not replacing, they're just hiring a little bit less. And then not, and the dream is not that they end up hiring less, but they end up hiring, they don't oversaturate a position. They end up hiring that person, but for where they should fit, rather than having 7 wheels on a car that should have 4 kind of thing. So I think that's really kind of great. Um, I recently started doing AI certifications through Vanderbilt University and Coursera. So this is very on trend, I think, with everything that's going on right now. And I
Okay.
think if you use AI responsibly, especially as a corporate leader, if you use AI responsibly and you integrate this culture of empowerment and education, then as these employees learn AI, even as eventually certain data driven repetitive tasks get replaced, those employees will now have that skill set of using AI. They would have done it for that job for a little bit. So it's a little bit of a training wheel structure. So then when they do go off to the new position, they are empowered with these tools of AI, which are very powerful. And they're very powerful when getting your next job. So I think it would also do that because it teaches you how to do resumes. It can teach you how to do branding. You compare your resume to other resumes and tell you how impactful yours is. So I think all that would be very beneficial, or any type of community program that also did this kind of training would be beneficial. So I'd like that idea where I think Google has a good, strong position to come in and start integrating its employees with these tool sets, as I see them now doing with Gemini. And I think that's fascinating because I think everyone's afraid one's going to replace the other. But I think it's
I
more
agree.
like, but I think it's more like how when the loom was replaced by the sewing machine, You know what I mean? People did not stop operating sewing machines, whatever it was, a loom or whatever. It just meant one person did the output equal to 20 people. So it meant they
So
could sell more blankets, which means if you're with a company that knows how to scale and market, they're going to need those more blankets. So you didn't take Genesis' job, you just increased the output. And the old saying being, but back in the day, they would have had to hire 20 more people. And I was like, maybe, but they also would have had to hire 20 more looms and or build 20 more looms and hire more whatever. This really narrows it down to just about the employee and not all the other side artifacts that companies sell, whoever sells looms or however that works. So
yeah,
I think
and
about
if the
stuff like that.
companies are willing to help the employees learn, that
Yes.
makes it better, right?
I think it does because back in the day, if you think about the golden age of America, especially the corporate golden age, that's when we had that corporate profit tax, where if your corporation made over a certain amount, I think it was like $1 million, they had to pay like 80% in tax. Corporations didn't want to pay that in tax, so they didn't spend all that money, and part of that money went to these educational programs. Like back in the day, it was more like how you became a stock trader. You didn't go to college and then necessarily go. No, you took the job taught you, and then they had you take your certification. A lot of companies did that back in the day, where they taught. They didn't expect you really to go to college. They were really built to deal with people coming out of high schools or not schools, and just taking them and trying to get them to upskill on their own. I think we need more of that, because I think as long as we're sending people to colleges, especially colleges that are so generalized, we have too many people guessing at their future rather than applying it. Colleges at this point, for a majority of careers, are too theoretical in the early stages. Oftentimes for college, you got to take your first 2 years, which I call super high school, which is just a repeat of arithmetic and English and da 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 da. And then they should be using those 2 years to teach you applicable skills like AI, skills that can apply to all jobs.
Mhm.
And I think that would reinforce. But whether it's through college or whether it's through self-education, thankfully we have Google and the internet, so your ability to teach yourself if you have stable internet connection is really strong, which I think is a big applaud to the infrastructure package for getting internet to more places, because there are still places in Tennessee where internet is not a guarantee, cell service is not a guarantee, and that blows my mind. I'm like, really, 40,000 people live here and no one can research a good doctor? That seems insane.
To your point, we do have a lot of education right at our fingertips. I
We
mean,
do.
seriously, we do. So if anybody wants to take an initiative and learn something, you certainly can. I have certainly done it, whether it's YouTube or Google or whatever, we
Yes.
can get the answers. And now with Chat GTP, I mean, I don't know that's so great for me. I just love it. So,
Oh, it's
I
so
mean,
much fun.
yeah, if you're willing to go on there and learn, boy, it's right at your fingertips. So how can you go wrong with that, Gerald?
Oh, that's right. And the class I'm taking was actually for free through Coursera. And it's a Vanderbilt University class that teaches you the basics of um, prompt patterns and how
Oh,
to be a
okay.
prompt engineer. Because a lot of AI, you're kind of just guessing, but once you have these outlines of these fundamental patterns, it really becomes quite a super tool. It
Yeah.
is really ridiculous. And then you start to combine the patterns, and the engineering becomes quite adept. And I was really excited about that. And when I was looking at all these tools, it reminds me of like how that empowers mentors, kind of coming back full circle. So I think as corporate leaders or as company leaders or sole proprietors, wherever you fit in that spectrum, I think we're all trying to fight to see how we can best serve our communities and how to best build those communities. So a lot of times now, data filtering is the real war right now. There's
Right.
so much information out there, so much education out there, and a lot of people will bait the hook, as they say, and they'll give you some truth information, and then inside's a hook of something that like profits them or may not necessarily be entirely true or entirely factual. So now you have this like Oreo cookie situation where you have to identify all the layers of what you're taking in this content. And I think AI is going to be a powerful tool in that. And I think it's our job as mentors to kind of illustrate to people that where you're getting your content from really matters. Whether it's Ivy League, Harvard and Yale both have different societal doctrines that all their content and education reinforces. And if you're not as sure what those doctrines are, don't go to those universities. Because what happens is these kids get in, they're 3 years in, they picked it because they watched Gilmore Girls and Rory went to this school, so they wanted to go to that school, and so the problem is though, they don't understand what team they're really joining until they're 4 or 5 years in, until there's so much time or so much money that they just like, this is the team I'm part of now. This is what's right.
There
We're
is a
allowing a lot of people to
difficulty
have
for
voices.
Yeah,
Go,
there
I'm
is a
sorry.
difficulty for students to try to figure it out in
Yeah.
that short span. And they're awfully young going into
Oh, it's
university and
so,
trying to figure it out. So I certainly have empathy for them. However, on the flip side, they do have a lot at their fingertips and they do have a lot of research that they can
they
do
do.
a lot easier than we could when we were going to
Oh,
colleges and universities, where you really had to
yes,
feel your way through and hope that you were on the right path. And even then, you got a degree and then you work somewhere not even in your field. So it's
that's right.
definitely, and I think it's more, I think the educations that we're getting is more specific in
Yeah,
areas than it ever was. You know,
I
you used to
absolutely.
get a bachelor's of whatever, and it was, you know, or commerce or whatever you were getting. Now it's more specific. And I
Yeah,
think that that does help a bit because then the students can say partway through, I don't think this is for me, right?
it does help. I guess it's that our society in America asks so much of its young people. If
Mm.
you're 18 to 24, whether you're joining the military or going to college or going to the workforce, it is a huge ask. And there are huge consequences if you get it wrong in American society that we don't have the safety nets to rebuff. If you now in Tennessee, we're very lucky because we do have it. We can go to community college for free. There's not this financial gamble. I think a lot of states you have to gamble. You have to
Okay.
bet 25 to 50 grand and
I'm
then go
not
to a
familiar with
college.
the states because I'm up in
Uh,
Canada, but you have
oh,
a different system than us.
it is, and it's a little bit more consequential. As far as if you pick wrong, you still owe that 50, 60K.
Mhm.
You still have to pay that money, even if you went to an art school and you're like 2 years in. Oh man, I don't really want to do this. Um, I think that's important to keep in mind. So people are aware of that and they put a little bit more thought into what they think of, but you still just don't know what you don't know. And I think that burden comes at a cost.
Mm.
And I think because honestly, what it does, it traps people in positions that they otherwise wouldn't stay in. And so you get this level of resentment and you get this level of um, pain that transfers into their product. And so when you're comparing, now sometimes that pain can, at different phases of your life, the pain will drive you, just like in real life. If you're prepubescent and you break an arm, it grows back stronger. If you're post-pubescent and you break an arm, it grows back weaker. And in the corporate
That's an
world,
interesting analogy,
and in
Harold.
the corporate world, we're the same.
Yeah.
There's a point where that pain makes us stronger, but there's another point where it makes us weaker. And employers are not very intelligent about understanding that. Um,
It's going to be a different world coming. We have a lot of changes, a lot of new world. It's like when we had the industrial revolution, now we have the technology revolution, and really now we have even from technology the AI revolution, which is another one inside of an old one. So
that's
everything's
correct.
moving so quickly. I think we do have a lot of changes coming, and corporations are looking at that, Gerald.
I
But
think they are. I
yeah,
think you're right. And so I think about all that stuff when I'm thinking about what are the things I wish I knew as a mentor, as a freelancer starting, because I didn't realize that 1099 really meant anything. It was weird because it went from me doing a little camera work for my brother for his basketball game, me trying to make our mom laugh, me trying to make our family laugh. And then it took quite a while before I was actually allowed to professionally do camera. It was a little bit luck. I happened to be working just an AV hotel house gig where you install like microphones and little corporate meetings, and then you run off somewhere and only get called when there was a fire or something. And we were doing a cooking show in the Delta Ballroom for Altman Brown.
oh,
He's
okay.
an American. Oh, you know who he is? Awesome. Yeah, most
I
people
do.
do.
I
Sometimes when I
do.
talk to young people, they're like, I don't get it.
Wonderful speaker.
Oh, he's great. So he has this little fan club thing he does where you can come see him in person. And on this particular one, he was teaching people how to deep fry a turkey safely. Because deep fried turkey, if you do it wrong, it can explode if there's moisture
Right.
inside or whatever. So he has this ladder set up with a pulley so he can be far away from it and dip that turkey. And I was like, oh, that's genius. So he wanted a shot from up in the catwalk. My boss on the floor knows I've never professionally operated a camera, that I'm just an amateur at this point. And this is before everyone had a camera in their phone.
Okay.
So having access to a camera is still even kind of an economic thing. But Altman Brown wants to add a camera to the catwalk. And even when they tell us like, oh, we don't really have someone because the show starts in like 30 minutes. Like there's not time to go source like a professional. And my floor lead at the time was like, no, Jerald can do this. It's just a zoom in, zoom out. The camera doesn't even pan or tilt or any of this. It's just
Right.
zoom in, zoom out when the voice in your ear tells you and stop when he tells you. We'll even go up
Right.
there and set the speed. And so he got me on to my very first professional camera gig. So I went and did that. Altman loved my shots. They even played around and allowed me to do more, which I think
Okay.
was really great. One gig turned into a couple day gig, and then that broke that. How do I get a job doing this? And they're like, well, to be a camera operator, you kind of have to be a camera operator. Like you have to have, it's that cyclical, you got to have experience to get experience, but how do you get experience if you don't have any? And that broke that for me. And that was able to be my foot in the door. And from that moment on,
That's wonderful.
I started having these opportunities, and I was able to go from one camera gig a year to one camera gig a month to one camera gig a week, to doing it. It's like 90% of what I sell now is long lens camera operating. And then I do a little bit of content creation, a little bit of data analytics, and these other little things as like reinforcing sidecars. But I think about how my life depended so deeply on luck, and how I feel that's not the best tactic. That's not emulatable. That's not sustainable. For someone to come to me like, hey, what would help me? I'm like, just be lucky. Part of it is be around. If I was at Couch, I definitely wouldn't have gotten that opportunity. Taking the smaller gig did lead to the bigger gig because I was teamed with people I trusted and believed in. And when that changed, when that same job I was doing the floor tech too, and that's when that supervisor left and it was someone else, it was not the same trust. It was not the
Right.
same love. So at that point, I was like, this no longer really serves me. So go. Because it does all come back to your team. If your team isn't someone you believe in, you probably shouldn't be there,
Yeah.
regardless of the skills you're learning. And if you really need those skills, as soon as you have them bound, and be honest with your intent that you're there for that education and you're not necessarily there to be drained.
Yeah, exactly.
Because part of having people respect you is earning that respect.
Oh, yeah.
Oftentimes, courtesy is given, but respect won't be. Respect has to be earned. And people oftentimes I think young people especially can't tell the two apart. They think this person is being nice, so they must be respectful, and it's not the same. We're nice to babies. We would not let one drive a car. We don't respect its ability, right? But we are kind to it. We wouldn't yell at it. We just like, no, get out of the, who put this baby in this driver's seat? Let's, then we start asking those kind of questions, right?
Yeah.
So I think about that kind of stuff, and I was like, that's not really sustainable. What is sustainable? And I was like, understanding how your business operates, understanding that as 1099, you are a business and not an employee,
Yeah.
and understanding that you have strengths and powers attached to that. If these companies could afford employees, they'd go have them. Contractors are cheaper. You're saving them a lot of money, and you're allowed to ask for things in return for that savings. You really can. And a lot of people don't know that. So that's Sam, because he was even talking to me. I came from steel roof construction. I got into production by accident. I was coming off a late night wiring gig. It was like 3 a.m. I was like, this store is the only thing open. I pull in to get a candy bar and a soda, just a little sugar rush. And a guy from high school just happened to be in line in front of me. And he keeps doing that weird look back, because we were in classes, but we didn't know each other. And he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you go to Hendersonville High School? And I was like, yeah. We start talking. He owned a production company that did labor for Ryman Auditorium,
Isn't
and
that something?
everyone loves to go see those shows. So he's like, hey, you don't have to quit your normal job. You're doing this. That sounds great. He's like, but if you want to come do a loadout Friday night, it's take it or leave it. So like when I call, you say yes or no, no hard feelings. You don't quit. You don't get whatever. He's like, just come down. We're doing this concert. I think it was Oasis, which I loved. I was like, I would normally pay $50 to see this. Instead, I'll come out. I'll get paid this very tiny amount of money. I don't even want to say how much little it was, and get a t-shirt. And I was like, and I don't have to quit my job. There's no commitment other than, do this one project.
Right.
And I love that. So I went, did the gig, and just fell in love. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is something different. This is something different. There was a little overlap where I did residential, electrical, and production, but
Right.
it was like 30 days and I was done. I was only
But
at
everything
Ryman
come
all the
together
time.
for you. And
It did.
now, Jerald, we could talk to you forever. So let me ask you, will you come back and talk to us another time?
Oh, absolutely.
Because
Absolutely. This is a lot
honestly,
of
you're
fun.
just so easy to talk to. You got some great ideas, and I'd love it if you come back and talk to us. I wish I had hours and hours for
Oh,
you.
I know.
So
And
no,
I'm
but
definitely
it's
verbose and
no, it's
long-winded.
great. It's wonderful. So if anybody wants to reach out to you, what's the best place to get you, Jerald?
Probably Instagram, Blue Sky. If you Google, thankfully, I've learned a good bit about search engine optimization. And as
Okay.
long as you spell my name correctly, Jerald Winston, like the cigarettes, Winston, Jerald Winston, all my stuff comes up. So it's all
Okay.
right there. There's no
Okay,
one, because I
perfect.
know
And
everyone likes to use different stuff. And I don't like to trap them to whatever specific app. You can pretty much find my work everywhere.
okay,
Instagram
and
and stuff like that's really great.
I'll make sure all your information is on here too, okay? So we'll have
Awesome.
everything on here as well. So for everyone there, this has been Teresa Aker from Success Diaries with Teresa Aker. We're talking to Jerald Winston. Thank you so much, Jerald. it was just a pleasure to have you on today. We're definitely going to have you back, so no worries.
Awesome.
And everyone else, I do hope you're having a great day. Please subscribe so that we can bring you some more content. And you have a great day. I look forward to talking to you all very soon. Bye-bye now.